The airline that exists because millions of Americans can't afford to fly on a real airline is now asking the federal government to save it. Hi everyone, Steven here. I'm an active futures trader and I've been watching this economy from the ground up for over 2 decades. And if you learn even one new concept in this video, consider subscribing and tell us in the comments. Have you flown with Spirit or other budget airlines in the past? Was it worth the cost savings? And get ready for this, because I've never seen an ending quite like this one before. So here's the official story. Spirit Airlines is in bankruptcy. Again, that's the second time in less than a year. They're burning through cash so fast that their own lawyers stood up in federal court this week and said the money won't last much longer. They have days, not weeks. And now the Trump administration is in talks to hand them $500 million in loans in exchange for up to 90% ownership of the airline. The government might be about to own Spirit Airlines. Now that's the headline. Now let's talk about what's really underneath all of it. The Spirit has lost more than $2.5 billion since 2020. $2.5 billion. That's not a rough patch. That's a business model that structurally just doesn't work. They built everything on one premise: charge people less than everybody else and squeeze every dollar out of fees and fill enough seats to survive on razor-thin margins. There's no frills, no food, no legroom, no mercy, really. The pitch was simple. You can fly for almost nothing if you're willing to tolerate everything that comes along with it. And for a very specific kind of traveler, that was the only option. See, Spirit didn't build a business around people who chose budget travel. They built it around people who had no other choice. That's a different thing entirely. But now watch what happens when fuel prices double on you. Spirit's entire restructuring plan, the one they filed with bankruptcy court, it assumed that jet fuel at $2.24 per gallon. That was their number, the number the whole survival plan was built on. As of mid-April, jet fuel is running at $4.32 a gallon. Almost exactly double. JP Morgan ran the math and said the gap alone adds $360 million to Spirit's annual costs. Spirit had $337 million in cash at the end of last year. So you just do the math. The fuel spike didn't just hurt Spirit. It wiped out the entire margin that a rescue plan was supposed to generate. And here's where it gets sharp. Spirit cut their flights in half. They were running about 29,000 flights a month in 2024, but by March of this year, they were down to just 15,000. Headcount went from nearly 12,000 employees to under 10,000. They took concessions from their pilots and flight attendants. They shrunk to try to survive, and it still wasn't enough, because the fuel math doesn't care how small you get. Now, here's the part that never makes any of the headlines. This bailout, if it does happen, this would be the first time in modern American history that the federal government has stepped in to rescue a single airline, not an entire industry. After September 11th, the government bailed out the whole sector. During COVID, $54 billion went out to all carriers. But this would be very different. This would be $500 million specifically just for Spirit, specifically because Spirit is specifically broke. And at the moment that that news hit, shares of Frontier, Allegiant, and Southwest, they all dropped because every other budget carrier just watched the government signal something. If you're struggling and you're big enough to cause political noise, maybe help is coming. That's a precedent nobody in the industry really wanted to see set. And there's also this. A JetBlue merger that could have resolved all of this was blocked by a federal judge in 2024 on antitrust grounds. The Biden administration opposed it. Spirit spent nearly 2 years in merger limbo, making no hard decisions, bleeding money, going nowhere. Now the same federal government that blocked the exit is being asked to fund the survival. You can't make this stuff up. But here's the bigger picture. Spirit Airlines is a K-shaped economy story, full stop. The top of the K, people that fly Delta, United, Premium, Business Class, they barely notice Spirit even exists. The bottom of that K is who Spirit was built for. And people who a $50 fare was the difference between seeing family and not seeing their family, and between making a job interview and missing it, between being able to travel and being completely stuck. And when the cheapest option in a market starts to collapse, not from competition, not from lack of demand, but because the basic economics of operating it have become impossible, it's not an airline story. It's a cost of living story. That's a story about who this economy is actually working for and who it's leaving behind. The government is now deciding whether to prop up a broken business model to preserve access for Americans who have no other choice. That's not a rescue, that's a symptom. Now, if you want to go deeper on economic stories like this, who's really getting squeezed, how the haves and have nots are playing out in real time, head on over to my main channel where we use Vegas as a case study to show you the economy as a whole. And if you want to see how I teach people to trade the markets, use the link to learn about 1K a day. Use the link and use the code KSHAPE to get 90% off. Links to both are in the description. And if you want to learn about how the recent Hardee's franchisee that went bankrupt is a bigger story than anybody will ever tell you and a warning sign to the K-shaped economy, click the link that's up near my head. Subscribe to this channel. I do videos every single day. I take a concept and make it bigger and show you everything that's at stake.